Welcome to This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, brought to you by Riverside Auto Group and produced by WLAQ Sports. Each week, we bring you insight, analysis, interviews, and our predictions for the week's matchups around the Northwest Georgia area. Here are your hosts.
Well, she just mentioned that we're going to bring you some insight, but based on the way that we picked the games last week, I'm not sure that that necessarily is the case. We're going to find out, but we're still in that crazy season, Ian, where we're trying to figure out what everybody's got and all that kind of stuff. But I have to say, and I'm not picking on you because I got a couple of games lead. Yeah. I'm not proud of how I picked last week, but collectively it was a rough week, wasn't it?
It was.
My goodness.
It was. We did not do well, me in particular. So see if we can get back on the right track here in week 2.
We're going to find out. And as far as the picks went last week, I was 3-4, so I had a losing record, and Ian was 1-6. My goodness. And again, normally I'd be excited about having a 2-game lead, but as poorly as it went just in general for us in terms of the pick, I'm not very excited about that, to be honest with you.
Yeah. A lot. I don't. After last year and losing by a landslide, I'm not excited to be down 2 games already. I can promise you that.
I got you. Well, we're just getting started. And again, I think the theme continues this week that we're still trying to figure things out, as a lot of teams are trying to figure things out and that sort of thing. So we're going to dive into some picks coming up in just a little bit. But I thought it'd be a good place to start to kind of recap last week's action a little bit. And so the first question I'm going to ask you, because I know you've gone back and kind of looked at some of the games that took place and everything, followed it pretty closely this past Friday and Saturday, and in one case that we'll talk about in just a little bit. But what were some of the first impressions that you got from the first week of games, things that really jumped off the page for you?
Yeah, 1A, Rockmart over Cedartown. That one jumps off the page at you. Got a text that they were leading 53-7 at halftime and needed to confirm that. That was shocking. And then I went back and watched some of that game, and Cedartown lost some key players earlier, but Rockmart looks really good. Tucker Parson, that's the coach's son, who's taken over at quarterback, threw for 4 touchdown passes. And Rockmart, who has won 8 straight region championships, but has had they've played well in non-region play, but they've played tough opponents. Last year they took some lumps early. This year they go on the road against their rival and absolutely dominate. So that one jumped off the page at me. And the Battle of Dragons, Pepper falling short to Pickens in a hard-fought game. They were up early in that one, lost it 28-20. But I still think Pepperell's got potential to have a really great season this year. And then, of course, our ball game that we called on the road at Mount Vernon was every twist, turn, delay, postponement, you name it, we saw it in that ball game.
We did. I mean, it's almost like a half a season in the span of 24 hours. And when you think about that situation, Ian, I know we're going to dive into this in more detail. In the case with the Darlington Tigers, I mean, they had to go down to Atlanta 2 days in a row to finish one game, and then they go to Kennesaw this Friday for another game. So essentially, within the span of 7 days, they're making 3 trips down to that same area. So you basically got 3 road trips to start the season in 1 week, which is a lot to ask. But they rose to the occasion, picked up a victory, had to hang on to win when they had a big lead early in the game. And I think that said a lot about the resolve and the grit of this team. So it was an impressive performance, and especially under the circumstances that they had to deal with to come out with the dub.
Yeah, absolutely. Held on for dear life, to say the least. And I know we'll dive more into that when we talk about their game against North Cobb Christian coming up on Friday night. And then some of the other area games that stood out. You had Cass losing to LaGrange in the early game at Barron Stadium in the Corky Kell, and then Rome jumped out to a big lead and ended up losing by 20 points. That was pretty shocking as well.
And I talked to somebody about that game. I don't know all the details, but somebody that I trust their opinion watched that game, and they basically said that Creekside kind of came out in that game a little bit flat, and then it was like somebody flipped a switch, and all of a sudden they woke up and are just an outstanding football team. So that was a tough matchup for Rome to start the season. They are actually one of a couple of teams that we normally would talk about today, but we'll have a week off.
Right.
And then what is the gift that's coming up next on the season for them? Playing Carrollton. So you want to talk about some tough teams right out of the gate for that Rome team. And then I think the week after that, they play Toombs. So they have a murderer's row to start the first few weeks of the season. But one of the things that we certainly know about Rome is, and Coach Reed, I think, even said this when we were doing our pre-season interview with him, was that most teams make the most improvement those first couple of games of the season. So one of the things that they did immediately was go look at the film and start trying to figure things out. So this is going to be a different looking team by the time they work their way into region play, and they're going to be tested throughout those first few games, which is only going to help them moving through the season.
Yeah, no question. It's good to play tough opponents early. It's only going to make you better when region play starts, and I have no doubt that that Rome will bounce back.
Well, here's a look at the games that we're going to start picking in our second segment. We're going to talk about the Ridgeland Panthers going out to Armurchie, taking on the Indians. That's the first game of the season for Armurchie. Also, Southeast Whitfield is going to be at Coosa. Coosa's first game of the year. So excited to dive into those matchups. Darlington, as we referenced, hitting the road to take on North Cobb Christian Eagles. A very good team that went to the semifinals last year, so that ought to be a great matchup. Cass Colonels are going out to Shannon to take on Model Blue Devils. Pepperell's heading to Adairsville, and a matchup that we've seen some droughts in over the years, but has some compelling games in that series, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Then you've got Berkmar Patriots down there in Cedartown taking on the Bulldogs. The Unity Lions look to go 2-0 as they go to Praise Academy. And then the Cartersville Purple Hurricanes are going down to Rockmart with a tricky test there, playing down a couple of classifications against a loaded Rockmart team. So that'll be a lot of fun to talk about. Again, Rome off this weekend, and Calhoun, who picked up a win last weekend, they are off as well. So that's the list of games. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back and hit the reset button and pick some games for week 2. That's coming up after this message here on This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, our Week 2 edition here on a Wednesday evening. We'll be right back.
Are you shopping for a new car, truck, or SUV? Riverside Auto Group has a location to meet your needs. Browse their selection online at riversideautogroup.com or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, Riverside Nissan in Rome, or Riverside GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group.
And we welcome you back to this episode, Week 2 edition of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, where we break down the weekend's matchups, give you our predictions for what that's worth. Last week wasn't worth much, as we pointed out in the opening segment, but we have a good time doing this and hope you enjoy tuning into the show each and every week as we keep the tradition going. But, Ian, we're going to jump into our first game, man, and this particular game is going to pit a couple of teams looking for the first wins of the season. Armurchie Indians have not played a game yet. Ridgeland Panthers have. They lost their first game of the year. When you look at the series history with this particular matchup, Ridgeland leads it 2-1. Armurchie won last year, but a close game, 13-10. It is the first game as a head coach for head coach Aaron Avery of the Armurchie Indians. Has a lot of enthusiasm. Enjoyed our conversation with him in our preview that we did with him, getting to know him a little bit just before the season started. But give us your take on this matchup.
Yeah, it's a tough one to call, to be honest with you. Ridgeland had a 30-plus game losing streak that they were riding last season. They were able to snap it, but then they started a fresh 5-game losing streak since then. So the Panthers have not enjoyed a lot of success, while Armurchie has been creeping up each year and finding ways to win more and more games. Of course, the regime change there with Aaron Avery taking over for Coach Ballou has a lot of people excited, and they'll have this one at home. Last week the Panthers did get a game and they lost it 40-0 to Lakeview Fort Oglethorpe. Again, while the Panthers have shown signs of improvement, they have lost a lot of games over the last few seasons. And now they have to come on the road and play Armurchie. Armurchie, as you mentioned, won this game 13-10 last year. I think Coach Avery brings a fresh energy in, and I'm excited to see what he can do at Armurchie. But I'm going the other way in this one. I think Ridgeland wins a very low-scoring defensive game. I think the Panthers pull off the upset on the road.
All right. Well, let's dive into the matchup as little as I know about it. And I think, to your point on that, Ian, there's just some unknowns with both of these teams. Obviously, as you mentioned, Ridgeland struggled out of the gate. They've had some tough seasons, lost to an improved LFO team, but still a team that posted a losing record last year in LFO. So to me, when you look at it, it appears Ridgeland could be in for another tough year that they've seen a lot of in the last few years. Coach Avery's been around successful football pretty much most of his life, so he knows, what it takes to run a successful football program. Very likable guy. I would imagine the players really like him and like to play for him. Been working hard, getting ready for the season. And he's a guy that you can tell from talking to him keeps his priorities in order. He's very organized, all that sort of stuff. So I think he can build a winning program here. But it's going to take some work. It's going to take some work. And when you look at this matchup, this could be a building block of that, because this is a matchup that could be favorable for the Indians. And that's not to say that it's an easy win that you can just go ahead and mark off, obviously. But I think they're going to be competitive in the game like they were last year. And it's an opportunity for them to have some positive things happen right out of the gate to start his tenure and grab some early momentum. So I could see this one going either way. In my mind, I sort of see it as a coin flip type game. And in those circumstances, I'm taking the local team. So wouldn't be surprised to see this turn out one way or the other, but I'm going to take Armurchie. So we have a difference right out the gate. Yeah.
All right.
All right, we'll move into the next game. Moving right along here, it's going to be the Southeast Whitfield Raiders going out to Coosa to take on the Eagles on Branch Bragg Field. Series history-wise, Coosa leads at 2-1. They won last year, overwhelming 32-0. And the Raiders haven't had a winning season in a long time. As a matter of fact, I think they're back in one of those cycles where they play an all non-region schedule. When I looked on the Georgia High School Football Historian site, there were no dots next to any of the games that would indicate region games. And, they had to do that several years ago because they've had a hard time fielding a competitive football team enough to compete in a region. So they're trying to get that program going, and it's just taking a lot of time. Jeff Cannon now set for season 2 at the helm of the Eagles. They turned some heads last year, earning a playoff spot in his first year. They're having to fill some holes from key guys that they lost from last season, but they've got a starting quarterback with some experience that turned some heads last year also, got some speed on the team. In addition, I think Cannon has built a strong foundation of work ethic and just a foundation in general for preparation for the team. So I think this is one of those games that Coosa should win, and I think they will win it. Do you see it the same way?
Yeah, Coosa, another one of our local schools that started the season with a bye in week 1. Now they get a chance to get under the lights at home and get their season started. I think everybody's excited to see how the Eagles will perform after they closed the season strong last year, got that great upset win at Chattooga that gave them a playoff spot and gave them some extra practices and something to build on as Coach Cannon builds this program in his vision. His son, Charlie, created a lot of buzz last year. Let's just be honest. The kid has some talent, and now he has a year of experience under his belt, and he gets to start this one at home against a program that has been struggling for years. So I think it's a great opportunity for Coosa to go out and start the season with not just a win, but an exclamation point statement kind of victory.
So we see that one similar. Ian, this next game we're not going to pick, but we certainly are going to talk about it in pretty good detail because this is a team that we see each and every week, and that is the Darlington Tigers. And, of course, they pick up a victory. It took a couple of trips down to Atlanta and Mount Vernon to get it done, but they win the game by a final score of 28-26 this past weekend. It was quite an adventure But boy, it was interesting to watch Coach Groves and his coaching staff and the players and the fans react to picking up a win, because it was one of those situations where you felt like it was equal parts excitement and enthusiasm for being 1-0, but at the same time, relief to coming out of there with a victory and get this thing done, because, boy, they had every type of adversity you could possibly have for a first weekend of football.
Yeah, it was a tale of two halves, a tale of 2 days, however you want to label it. Everything that could go right for Darlington did early, and they jumped out to a massive 28-6 lead. And then late in the third quarter, here came Mount Vernon. The Mustangs were fighting back, and everything that could go wrong started to go wrong for the Tigers on offense, at least. Turnovers, just really struggling to shut down the return game on special teams of the Mustangs, and allowed them to crawl back into that game. But the grit and determination of that Darlington defense, I mean, my goodness, man, they made, when they had to step up and make plays, they did on special teams. They returned a muff snap for a touchdown. They blocked a field goal. They blocked an extra point. So just the grit that we saw from this Tigers team going into week 3 gives you reasons to believe. And then the resolve of a young man getting his first start at quarterback. And we're talking about Levi Duggan, the sophomore, who's taken over under center for the Tigers. It wasn't a perfect effort from him, but when he needed to make a big play, he did. And that speaks a lot to that young man's potential as the quarterback for the Darlington Tigers, and he'll lead them into this game against a North Cobb Christian team we know is very good, but Darlington lost this game 14-7 last year. And they really, I remember that game well. They played well enough to win, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
100%. And then when you look at this Eagles team, Ian, they're in their 18th season of playing GHSA football. Took about a decade to get some momentum with the program, but since then they've really taken off. They made the playoffs the last 7 seasons. They made it to the semifinals last year. So this is a team that's really seasoned. They've had 5 trips past the first round during that span of making the playoffs those consecutive years. Matt Jones is the head coach. This is his 5th season. So he's helped take this program from a really good program that was already a perennial playoff team to being a team that, you know, people are already talking about. This might be a team that could contend for a championship, perhaps. So I don't know about that. I don't know about their personnel, but there's no doubt the man can coach a football team, and they've got some good players. So this is going to be a tough test, which I think is good for a team like Darlington at this phase of the season, to go up against some good teams, kind of find out where you are, and figure out what you need to do as you move forward throughout the season. It just only makes you better. But like you said, they really competed in this game last year, and I think that can be the case again this year for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. How healthy are they at that B-back position? Yes, and Miles Twyman went down with a hip contusion, and then his backup also had an ankle injury. So I think that'll be important in this one. But I think Darlington certainly has the grit to hang tough in this game, if not pull off a win on the road.
And I do want to mention another name specifically, because we didn't in the broadcast because we had some weird angles and sight lines for the game, certainly not making excuses there. And we didn't have our typical replay set up where we could see what happened after the fact. But I believe it was Sawyer Sorrells who blocked an extra point and also a field goal in that game. We saw it happen, but we couldn't tell who got their paw on it in either occasion. So we want to give that young man credit where it's due, which we'll also do in the Coach Groves show coming up in just a little bit. But just a great team effort and great team win for the Darlington Tigers last week. So congratulations to them. One more game that we're going to talk about, and we're going to pick this one as well, and then we'll take our final break here on the show. And this one, Ian, is going to pit the Cass Colonels against the Model Blue Devils. And, of course, this game is going to be out there at Woodard Tuggle Stadium as the Model Blue Devils get this particular one at home. A little bit of series history on it. Model leads it 3-2. Cass won last year, though, 48-0, and it was the first matchup since 1991. So this Cass team's a lot different than the Cass teams of old. So this is going to be quite a substantial challenge, more than likely, for the Model Blue Devils.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to our local teams, a lot of them started off getting an L last week, and both these teams are hungry for win number 1. Cass fell to LaGrange, Model fell to Sonoraville on the road. So they'll both be hungry to get a win here. And in this situation, though, you've got a Cass team with quarterback Brody McCord that's really just next level. Plus, they're a bigger school with a deeper roster. Coach Gates has them rolling. Coach Honeycutt will have the Devils ready to play. But at the end of the day, I think that depth is the reason you can't pick against Cass.
Yeah, that's to me also is the only way that you can see this game. You look at a Cass team that the last several years have been either a 4A or a 5A playoff school. And that bigger roster size, probably size in terms of players and things of that sort, is going to be tough for Model. But at the same time, Coach Honeycutt has done a tremendous job at Model over the last, 7 or 8 years. I forget exactly what it is. He's the longest tenured coach in Floyd County. And he never shies away from taking his team to a challenge and the kind of lessons and things that you can learn out of that situation. So this is one of those games, while it's going to be tough, and I think Cass is going to win the game, I think that Model is going to get better from playing a team like this. And so they'll just get up there and line up there and see what they can do. At the end of the day, I think Cass wins, but we'll see what happens this weekend. So that's going to be the last game that we're going to pick here of this round. We're going to take one more break, and we'll come back, pick 4 more games, and wrap up. But this is the Week 2 edition of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. I'm Matt Davis. He's Ian Griffin, and we're going to be back to pick a few more games after these messages.
Are you shopping for a new car, truck, or SUV? Riverside Auto Group has a location to meet your needs. Browse their selection online at riversideautogroup.com or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, Riverside Nissan in Rome, or Riverside GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group.
All right, we welcome you back here for our final segment of this episode of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. We welcome you back in. And Ian, we're going to dive right into another matchup. And earlier in our first segment, we were talking about how this one kind of has, a decade here, where they have a drought in terms of the matchup. But it's one of those series I think fans look forward to when it is on the schedule, because it's been a close series. And I'm talking about the Pepperell Dragons going over to Adairsville to take on the Tigers. Series history, Dragons lead at 13-11, and there's been one tie. The Tigers won last year 31-14. And I'll never forget this for some reason, but when I was a freshman at Pepperell, I went to see Pepperell and Adairsville play up at Adairsville. This would have been 1993. It's when Coach Honeycutt obviously was still the coach over there for the Pepperell Dragons, and Coach Graves, Gary Graves, who's now the pastor over at Calvary, he was the coach at Adairsville during that time. And it was a really close game, super atmosphere for the game. And it's just one of those moments as a fan, you remember being there. It was super exciting. So perhaps there'll be more of that type of environment for this particular game. How do you see this one? I'm really curious of how you look at this one.
Yeah, as the theme continues here, both these teams winless thus far and searching for victory number one. But I think this is a pretty even matchup. I think Adairsville's replacing, a lot at the skill positions, whereas Pepperell has some returning experience. And it bit me time and time again. I took the Dragons last year, and they lost some close games. But I'm taking the Dragons to go on the road and win this one. I'm interested to see how you pick it. I think it'll be close, but I think Pepperell edges Adairsville.
Would you prefer that I build a little bit of suspense?
Sure, however you want to play it, man.
Just come out with it. Well, here's the way I see this one, man. Pepperell came up short last week, but they showed flashes of their ability in terms of playmakers with big plays from Sam Ross. You had Maddox Garcia contributing, their quarterback Moss Tant. We all know what he's capable of. And you often hear coaches say this. We talked about Coach Reed saying it in his preview of how teams get better from that first game to the second game. That's where you see a lot of the biggest improvement for teams. I think the Dragons are going to take a big step forward this week. I think that one of the things they have to be careful about is the mental aspect of it, because last week they were playing up against a team they probably felt like they could win against. They were competitive, came up a little bit short, and you got to be real careful where you don't take a step back and start thinking, here we go again, that sort of thing. So I think this is a really important game for that aspect and the momentum aspect. So I'm going to take Pepperell in this game with a little bit of hesitation, but I think they've got the dudes to have a really good team this year. And I think they've got the coaching staff in place to get the job done. And I think this is going to be where they start to pull things together. So that's my take. I agree with you. I picked Pepperell. I kind of thought we might have a difference in that one.
Yeah, me too.
But,
me too.
I'm still in on this Dragons team.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and move to the next game. It is going to be the Berkmar Patriots going down to Cedartown to take on the Bulldogs. Series history-wise, very short history, Ian. They played once. The Bulldogs won at 27-7 last year. Give us your thoughts on this one, if you will.
Yeah, last week, if it could go wrong, it kind of did go wrong for Cedartown. It was 8-7 midway through the first quarter. Had a couple of injuries to some key players, and then everything went south really quick for Cedartown. So to me, this is a get back right situation. They get Berkmar at home. The Patriots have not been a very successful program. I think Tommy Atha gets his first win as the Bulldogs head coach, and I think they win big at home.
You were very kind of how you put that Berkmar has not been a very successful program. They have been around for 60 seasons, and they have only been to the playoffs twice and never won a playoff game. And so they've really struggled. I think this is an opportunity for a team that had a tough week last week to try to get things back on track and to build some confidence, And obviously he's got a young team. You talked about how they had some injuries early in the game that kind of set them behind. And but if there's one thing that we all know, and anybody that follows high school football around the area knows, is Coach Tommy Atha knows how to coach football team. He will get this team on track. It's just a matter of when, in my personal opinion. So I think this is going to be a step forward for this team. Last week was a little bit of setback. That's already in the rearview mirror. There's no doubt that they just went right back to work as soon as that was over. And I think they'll get on track here with this particular game. So I'm going to take Cedartown to win the game as well. Two more to pick. The Unity Lions are going to Praise Academy. Unity's 1-0 to start the year. They did something that was kind of a rarity last week, Ian. They pitched a shutout.
I know.
You don't see that happen much in nine-man football, do you?
No, you don't. And that was my first note. Let's give the Lions credit for putting a goose egg on the scoreboard for their opponent last week. Coach Humphreys talked to us about it in our preview show. He's like, you're going to see a lot of points. It's just the nature of nine-man football. But they go out there and get a shutout win. Miles Schwartz now has a game under his belt. Coach Humphreys was really interested to see how he would perform when there were live bullets being fired. They were able to put up 20 points and get the win. They lost to this Praise Academy team early last season, but we all know the story of Unity's season. It was a stop-and-go type situation. I think they go on the road here and continue their winning ways. I think this Unity team is, look, they've been at the top of the mountain and right near it for the last 5 seasons. But I think they may have something special out there this year.
I would happen to agree with you. It definitely raised your eyebrow when you realized they pitched the shutout. And then having a young quarterback that's a sophomore, tossing a couple of touchdown passes, also ran in for a score. This is a team that's really a lot of fun to watch. And obviously with Coach Humphreys there with experience at all levels of football, all ranks of high school, coached in college, also coached at the pro level with the arena football team. I mean, the man knows how to coach a football team, and this is a great spot for him. I think he really loves coaching at Unity and these kids. So I think they're going to have a lot of fun this year. I'm with you. I think Unity is going to pick up the W. So there you have it. We got one more game to pick, and we are quickly running out of time, so we'll go ahead and jump into that one. But this one's certainly the marquee matchup of the weekend in a lot of places, but it's the Cartersville Canes going down to the Rock at Rockmart to take on the Yellow Jackets. Man, I'm really curious to see how you see this one.
I mean, look, Rockmart goes on the road in week 1, starting a freshman at quarterback against their rival in a hostile environment. What's the kid do? That's right, Biff's son Tucker. He went off. He threw for 4 touchdowns. Was an absolute stud, and he's only a freshman. We're going to be hearing about this kid for the next 4 years. Get ready. Now, they get a juggernaut in the form of the Cartersville Purple Hurricanes coming to the Rock. Can they do it again? Can they take down another Goliath? I mean, I think they keep it really close. And there won't be any shame in losing this one because this is Cartersville we're talking about. This is a team that has been competing for state championships at a higher classification for the last decade plus. So I think it's close. I think Rockmart keeps it close, but I'm going to go with Cartersville. I can't pick against Coach Foster and the Hurricanes in this one.
I can't either, and I think this is going to be one of those situations that comes down to a depth issue. If you felt like Rockmart could sneak up on Cartersville or something like that, then maybe, but Rockmart's not sneaking up on anybody because they've been good for so long. And at the same time, you know, what they did in terms of how lopsided the game was last week and all those sorts of things, there's no way this team sneaks up on Cartersville. So I think at the end of the day, with Rockmart playing up a couple of classifications, I think the Canes are going to have, you know, the ability in terms of their numbers to kind of wear the Jackets down perhaps. But I'm kind of with you. I'm really intrigued by this matchup. I think this may end up being a little bit closer than people think that it will. But we'll see what happens. That's why they play the game.
Indeed it is. So one difference.
One difference. Yep. So there you go, folks. What was the difference? I didn't.
Ridgeland and Armurchie.
That's right. The very first game that we picked, of course. Let me break down our coverage real quick, and then we'll bid you adieu. Of course, this was This Week in Northwest Georgia Football on WLAQ YouTube and Facebook Live, or you may be listening to the radio edition ahead of our Friday night coverage of football. 7 o'clock this evening, you're going to get the Coach Grove Show with head coach of the Darlington Tigers, Wayne Groves. So stick around for that. It'll be a different stream on our YouTube and also our Facebook Live, but same channel. Then on Friday, 6:15, radio edition of this program. 6:45 on Friday, the Coach Grove Show radio edition. Then we'll go live with the Tiger Kickoff Show, live from Kennesaw, Georgia at 7:15. And then at 7:30, Darlington Tigers at North Cobb Christian Eagles. And then after the game, Ian, it's going to be the Rome Orthopedic Center Scoreboard Show with Lynn and Austin Butler, father-son duo there, and looking forward to those guys coming up on Friday nights. And make sure you call them after the weekend's games. They appreciate your calls.
Heck yeah. It's going to be a great week of football.
Ian, thanks for your time as always, man. It's been a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
That's going to put a wrap on this edition of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. Hope your team wins this weekend. Have a great weekend, everybody. We appreciate you.
This has been another edition of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, brought to you by Riverside Auto Group and produced by WLAQ Sports. We appreciate you tuning in and invite you to tune in again next week. Please like, share, and subscribe.